Well, I got 2:45, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to everyone. Just as a reminder, this is being recorded. I appreciate you joining us for this high performance education session and I'm very honored to introduce both my friend and colleague, Renee Blackshear, who will be presenting on high performance education. It's all yours, Renee.
All right, thank you, my Katie. It's my honor to be a friend and colleague of yours as well. So thank you all for joining us today. As Katie mentioned, this is a discussion about high performance education and the foundations of performance-based education, or PBE, as we at TSTC, or Texas State Technical College, like to refer to it as. So without further ado, let's get started, provided I can hit a button today. Okay, what is PBE? Very simply, it is hands-on, flexible online learning with some hybrid competencies as well. It's basically a modality switch from your traditional face-to-face, let me stand there and lecture to you for however long, and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. If you miss, we'll figure out a way to, make it up later, to moving more online to where your lectures and your instructional content, as well as your instructional activities, are available online. So students have the flexibility to review that information prior to attempting what we're going to refer to as a mastery assessment, and show and demonstrate mastery of learned concepts and competencies. So it's moving from traditional to a course-based, competency-based education module. Development and implementation is 100% online with self-guided curriculum. And don't worry, we're going to explain that here in just a little bit. Students also have the ability to accelerate, which works great. And I'm going to jump right into that. What do I mean by that? Self-guided curriculum with the ability to accelerate. Sounds cool, sounds awesome. And I promise you, as a faculty member, it absolutely is, because you can have a student come in on day one of the semester with 4 classes, and you talk to them about all 4 of your, let's say, networking classes, for example. Give them a rundown on, brief description on how all of them work, and you can set up what I refer to as an individualized pacing plan that helps the student navigate through all 4 of the classes. And what they'll end up doing is they'll focus on 1 or 2 of the classes the first 7.5 weeks of the semester, and the other 2 classes the remaining 7.5 weeks of the semester. So instead of trying to work through all the content, all 4 classes at once, they're breaking it up into smaller, more digestible chunks. But we're going to take a little bit deeper look into that and talk a little bit more as we go along. What is the purpose of PBE? It's training to master valuable job skills that help the learner get into a career and obviously earn the salary that they deserve, because they've demonstrated that they are a high quality, high value student. We're placing them in high quality, high value jobs. What is PBE about? It's simply about success. If you look down the left-hand side of the screen, and in a minute they'll switch to the right, but there's some commonalities or common topic areas. First one is being flexibility and accessibility. PBE is centered around the student. It's everything about the student. Give them all of the information that they need in an online format so they can look at it, review it at 2 o'clock in the morning. If they can't sleep, they can go in and listen to a lecture, some of which, please feel free to laugh, may make them fall asleep, but others are going to grab their interest. They're going to start moving through that content. They're going to go through and start doing some checks for understanding and mastering the competencies. We meet the students where they are. So if we have someone that is new to, let's say, I'm going to use networking as my example the entire time, because guess what I teach? I teach networking and cloud computing. But if we have a student that is new to networking, and they need to know that, a computer is more than just a pretty picture box with buttons on it, then we're going to start off a little slower, and we're going to move through the content a little slower. Maybe instead of bringing them in as a full-time student, we bring them in as a part-time student, and we help them on their own individual pace, move through the course content so that they can be successful. PBE is personalized. We offer the students the opportunity to leverage their experience and existing education to increase credit. So if we have someone, instead of someone that's new to networking, they know a little bit more about a computer being more than a pretty picture box with buttons. Let's say, for example, they have a CompTIA A+ certification exam. They can give us a copy of that certification. We may offer transfer credit. More importantly, we have what's referred to as a prior learning assessment, or a PLA, so that the student can come in, or the learner can come in, they can take the PLA, or prior learning assessment. And then all of those competencies are competencies that are listed in the course that they would be demonstrating mastery on. Well, if you take the PLA and you demonstrate mastery on those same competencies, we're going to give you course credit and move you right along into your next valuable course. Obviously, PBE is competency driven. It's not just okay, do checkbox on a checklist of different topics that we covered. It is competency based. We measure the success through each competency, ensuring that the learner gains the skills they need to complete mastery. We don't just put them in the class and okay, check the boxes. You read all of these things. Show me your skills. Show me that you know how to do this. We've also increased our focus on hands-on learning. At TSTC, we've always been about hands-on learning. That's one of the things that sets us apart from other colleges and universities around the nation. But if we allow the learners to view their lectures and checks for understanding online, that gives the learner more opportunities and more time in the lab with credentialed instructors or faculty members, so that they can reinforce what they've learned. So for example, continuing on with the networking example, online, they may go in and build a computer using a simulator. When they come into the lab to demonstrate mastery for that mastery assessment, I'm going to put them on the actual physical hardware. They're going to come in with a bunch of pieces sitting on the table, and their responsibility and for their mastery assessment to demonstrate mastery of that concept is to take all those pieces and make them into a computer. By then, they'll be able to demonstrate mastery. Acceleration. This is my favorite part of PBE. As I mentioned before, you could have that student with no general knowledge or very limited general knowledge about IT or computers. That student can accelerate through. If they don't choose to take the PLA and advance through the course that way, you could have a student come in on day one of the semester, sign up for 4 classes, do the individualized pacing plan that I do, for example, and say they're going to agree to work on 2 classes the first 7.5, the other 2 classes the last 7.5 weeks of the semester. Within those first 2 classes, that student could come in on week 1 and knock out review the content and lectures online at home, come in and demonstrate mastery. The first week of the semester, they come in and do 4 mastery assessments. Let's say there's 6 mastery assessments in the entire course. They do 4 the first week. They come back Monday and Tuesday of the second week. Guess what? They demonstrated mastery of the entire course. They're passed, they're done, move on to the next class. And then we have some flexibility with how we incentivize students to accelerate through the course content. Curriculum clarity. All of our competencies contain skills that are useful on the job. If we don't waste the learner's time learning things that they're never going to use. We're going to mention it so that they know what it is, but if they're not going to use it, we're going to let them know this is where your domain is going to be. These are the skills that you're going to use all the time. So you need to demonstrate, and you will demonstrate mastery of those. Increased rigor and quality, sorry about that. When a learner masters each competency in order to advance to the program, it makes the learner a more high quality graduate. And because they've been able to move through that content and are more of a high quality graduate, they're also going to take that work ethic into the workforce and be a higher quality employee for the company. We also offer what's referred to and everyone refers to as micro-credentials and badging. The learners are provided with a digital version of their credentials that contains verified data that describes the qualifications and the process required to earn them. Very simply put, they're going to get the nice, pretty little badges that roll up that everyone wants to use. If it's, for example, an IT industry recognized certification, such as CompTIA A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and so forth, they're going to be able to utilize those badges, provided they have, mastered and set for that certification exam and earned that certification. We're also going to give them the standard college transcript, as well as a competency-based transcript, which is great because, if you go to a job interview and you tell an employer, okay, well, I took a Windows Server course. Well, great. Your transcript says you took a Windows Server course. What did you actually do in the Windows Server course? Well, our learners and our graduates will have a competency-based transcript where they can copy and paste what they actually learned and the competencies they mastered into their resume and inform the employers in that manner. They can also put just a few in their resume, such as, I've mastered the installation and configuration of a Windows Server environment. And then when they get into the job interview, they have additional talking points that they can move forward with. Long story short, what is PBE about? It is about success and a pathway to a paycheck. The programs are going to focus on the training needed in order to enter a rewarding career path in a high demand industry. So how did we do it? Starting with Tier 1 in the fall of 2021, we released 6 programs. TST statewide, I believe we have about 56, 57, somewhere along there. Let's just round it off at 60 different programs. Fall of 2021, we released 6 Tier 1 programs that were all PBE based. In addition to that, we've moved all of our general and developmental education courses to the PBE modality. This fall, we released Tier 2 with a total of 10 different programs alongside our academic core program that is available through our Harlingen campus. We have additional deployments that are coming up within the next few years as we are able to deconstruct the content and get the facilities prepared for PBE. We are moving those programs online, and it's happening at a more rapid pace. Types of assessments that are done in PBE. First and foremost, you have the option for direct assessment or course-based CBE. Direct assessment is going to bypass the course credit and academic structure. It's focused generally on the competencies. We do a little bit of that, but not much because we are course-based CBE. It's more traditional. The students take courses and they earn credits. It's just the modality and the way the curriculum is presented is a lot more flexible for the student as well as the faculty. It's designed around competencies, and the student or the learner must demonstrate knowledge, skill, and ability mastery. That's what KSA stands for. It's important when you're moving towards any different type of modality from a traditional or, adding additional modalities to your curriculum, that you make sure that your infrastructural departments are also included in the communication, because you don't want to have any type of snowball effect. I do apologize for the background noise. My granddaughter is trying to throw a fit, so I apologize. She's way on the other side of the house. But with your infrastructural departments, you want to make sure everyone is included so that you don't have any bottlenecks and everything can flow smoothly. So as we moved forward with deploying our PBE initiative, we made sure that everyone was involved. First group we looked at was not even on this list because they're that important. They are always in the forefront. We typically forget to put them on the list, and that is our industry partners. We always go to industry and make sure that we are doing what the industry needs. We are serving our industry partners by developing and implementing curriculum that they need in order to be able to place people in jobs within their organizations. We also talk to our institutional accreditation departments to make sure that anything that we do, we can still maintain our accreditation. Financial aid is important because when you change modalities, if there's different options for entry dates at the first, if you're going to start at the beginning of the semester, how many weeks can you run? Are you going to offer an alternative entry point and an alternative exit points? That's could possibly impact financial aid. So you need to talk with those and communicate with that department to make sure that they are aware of that and there's no snags or hangups. Registrar's office, same thing. Want to make sure there's no snags with them and they know what options are available to students. Creative services or marketing is just you want to communicate with them so you have an idea and a plan for branding your initiative and promoting that across your territory. Dual enrollment and recruiting are IT. They're all important because as you bring high school students in or dual enrollment students in, you want to make sure that they have the flexibility to join in and they understand the PBE initiative and how that will be beneficial to them. Recruiting, again, is important because you're going to want to recruit more students. You're going to look outside of the box and maybe non-traditional students or adult learners, whether they're going to reskill or upskill, showing them the options that you have available. Veterans Affairs, that's another huge funding source, making options available for veterans to reskill or upskill and move into higher education and ultimately end up in a better paying job. And then student advising. Advising goes on all the way through this process so that you can advise the student or advise the learners on what courses are available, pathways, funding sources, and all of the above. Types of CB or the curricular framework. First thing we did was we identified what programs we wanted to start with. That thing is what I like to refer to it as, and that thing would be COVID, kind of accelerated the online learning process for many organizations across the world. So IT being IT, we never stopped. So it was real easy to identify that IT programs could move into a PBE or a different modality pretty rapidly. So we began with many of the IT programs and started deconstructing our courses. Don't worry, I'll explain deconstruction in a moment. Your master grading policy is a little bit different. In a traditional environment, you typically have an A, B, C, D, and F in the ability to withdraw, and maybe a few others. With a competency based, it's either an A, B, or an F. You either mastered it or you didn't. And then you offer the opportunity for multiple assessments. So I know that probably sounded a little harsh, but here's how we do that. A student comes in, let's just take module 1. They work through module 1, they get to the mastery assessment. We're going to give them 2 attempts on their own to master it. So they take the first, Kate, we're going to use Katie as our example. Katie does the first attempt. She makes a 68. We're going to give Katie another opportunity to go back, review some information, to review the instructional content, instructional activities, and make another attempt. If Katie comes through and this time she makes a 78, we're going to have a conversation with the PBE mentor. And we're going to talk about, is there any particular topic, as a faculty member, I'm going to be involved. Are there any particular topics that you're struggling with? I've noticed in your mastery assessment, you might want to go back and look at this particular topic because you struggled a little bit. We're going to give them some advising and some guidance so that we can then open up yet a 3rd attempt. And we will continue to do that until the student masters that competency. And it's like that with each module because they go through module 1 and they cannot advance until module 2 until they have mastered by scoring an 80% or higher on module 1, all the way through the entire course. Modality is important. I keep mentioning online. We also have a hybrid option. The program I teach in is Computer Networking Systems Administration, and we offer both modalities. We have a fully 100% online modality where the students, they work remote from home. They never have to enter or very rarely have to enter a campus, and that is only for books or resources that are available on campus. We also have a hybrid modality, and what we mean by hybrid, all of the lectures and course content, instructional content, and checks for understanding are online. My students can look at that information at 2, 3, 4 o'clock a.m. if they want to. But when it comes to their mastery assessments, they are going to come into my lab in front of a certified credentialed instructor, and they're going to demonstrate competency of that lab. It's the exact same content, no matter the modality. The biggest difference is how do you do your mastery assessments, whether it's online, and we can even use such programs such as Respondus, I can't talk today, sorry for that, to lock down the screens for the online mastery assessments because we're monitoring those, or we monitor it in the hybrid modality face-to-face. We establish scheduling parameters. By that, I mean, we schedule online communities, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But with the hybrid modality, we are allowing the students to schedule their own lab times. For example, my lab, the CNS labs are typically open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we meet the students where they need us. If they work a full-time job or life happens, they can schedule their lab time to come in Monday through Thursday, anywhere from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. if that is needed. And what we do is they tell us, we can only come on Mondays and Thursdays from 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So we make sure that there's an instructor and facilitator available on those days to meet the students where they are. PBE is self-guided. We've talked enough about the hybrid and flipped classroom. It is self-guided. So if you have the student that's coming in and maybe they do an individualized pacing plan and they start struggling with a class called Network Plus, they can continue to move through that course at their pace, at their guide. They're self-guiding themselves. They need to slow down a little bit. For example, when it gets to the subnetting section, it may take them 3 weeks to do that module. That is just fine, because here's the cool part for the learner. At the end of the semester, let's say they didn't finish Network Plus. It's okay. We're going to give them the opportunity when they re-enroll in that Network Plus class in the next semester. Any mastery assessments that they've completed thus far will automatically transfer into the next semester. So if in the fall they got all the way through Mastery Assessment 3 and they didn't finish the course, and when they were by the time they hit Mastery Assessment 4, when they sign back into that course and re-enroll in that course for spring, they can pick up where they left off on Module 4. They don't have to go back and re-demonstrate competency on those first 3 modules. So it works out very well on behalf of the student. This diagram here, the Venn diagram here, is showing just a basic information on the differences between a traditional modality versus PBE. As you can see in the middle, in both, you have rich course material, GPAs based on the average of your class grades, part-time students pay the same amount for each course, support of an enrollment coach, and the differences are on the outside. And those things include the ability to do transcripts in a traditional environment. You're typically just going to get the standard course transcript, whereas in PBE, you're going to get both the course transcript as well as the competency transcript. Other support areas or program level student support include faculty. Faculty is always of utmost importance because we are on the front lines. We notice when a student is struggling, if they're falling behind pace, area, where we're grading their assignments where needed, and we notice, patterns that the student has or areas where they need to, refocus or reprioritize. We also utilize what we refer to as enrollment coaches to help motivate the students. Everyone motivates the students, but helps move the student through the curriculum or the courses that are included with all of our pathways. Mentors are along for the ride. We have a PBE mentor set up for every single program that is in there alongside the faculty, alongside the enrollment coaches as well, that are talking with the students, working with the students, making sure, hey, are you doing okay? I noticed you've been coming to lab a little bit stressed, looking a little stressed out. Is there any way I can help you? They're there to serve the learner and make sure that everything is going fine, that they're keeping, on a good, guiding themselves on a good pace, and that everything is moving forward. We've set up tutoring schedules as well as technical and online support, so it doesn't matter what time of day or night when the student needs us, there's someone available to speak to the students. Continuing through with program level support. This is a little bit backwards and I'll explain why in a few minutes, but roles and responsibilities, communication is number 1. As with everything else, it's important to communicate across the board with everyone. So we want everyone to know what's going on in every area. So if it's financial aid that we're communicating with, we all know how PBE is going to impact financial aid, marketing, recruiting, all of the above. We have a CME and SME, a subject matter expert, and a content matter expert. There is a difference in that because a subject matter expert they're subject matter expert. They know, I know IT. I know IT means that it's more than just a pretty picture box of buttons. Whereas a content matter expert is going to tell you that picture box with a bunch of buttons on it has a keyboard, a mouse, and a bunch of peripherals connected to it. It's running an i9 processor with 36, gigs of RAM, bare minimum, 2 petabyte hard drive. on and on and on. They're going to give you the actual content matter, and therefore they're going to work together, or can work together on determining what competencies are included in a course, and then developing the instructional content. If you have the question in your head, can the SME and the CME be the same person? Absolutely. And that's typically how we work at TSTC. I know with the CNS program, we're all CMEs because and slash SMEs because we all know the subject matter and are content matter experts. We are very fortunate to work with a talented group of instructional designers. Whereas a faculty member, we're focused on what content needs to be in there. You know, this has to be in there because it's important. The instructional designer is working with us to make sure that everything looks good, it's in the right order. If it's engaging, we've got, you know, instead of the whole boring, pull out a piece of paper and a pen, write, go 1 through 6, and then tell me what order all these steps go in. The instructional designers are working with us to make those interactive to where they auto grade, so that the student can, you know, do that as particular mastery assessment online. It makes it so much better for both the faculty and more flexible for the faculty as well as the learner. And then communicating with leadership. If leadership has to be involved, then they have to be supportive of your initiative, so that way they can communicate that support out across the organization. Going back a little bit into how did we do this, step 1 is actually at the very bottom. When I told you earlier that the first place we go is industry, that is the absolute first place we go. We make sure that everything we do is aligned with industry. So the first thing we do is we say, hey, industry, what do you have the need for? What do you want us to teach? They give us a list. Then we as faculty members and program managers, we come in and we do what's referred to as a needs analysis. You know, do we need this class? There's a big invisible question on the top of those documents that says, what on earth is the point of this class? And if you can't answer it, you really don't need that class. But we are always able, that was supposed to make people laugh. We always answer that question, and then we start outlining. This is what the students need to learn. From there, we go to what we refer to as deconstruction. We have all of our course outcomes. We develop student learning outcomes, module outcomes, and then we're inserting the content. You know, they need to see this video. They need to do something here. They need to read this. They need to watch this, and then do something else. We are adding that course content in there. And that's also part of the learning journey, is how are we going to navigate? How are we going to take them through this journey of learning this particular topic? For example, Python. How are we going to take them through? Well, we're going to start with the basics. What is Python? How did it get named Python? Who started it? What does it do? And then we're going to start walking through. By the end, they'll be doing a project where they create a data analytics dashboard where they're popping up graphs and plot diagrams and everything else. And they started from, how did Python get its name? We also go through what we refer to as post-development and CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous delivery. We're always looking for improvement. Post-development is what worked, what didn't, how do we improve it, how do we make it work, what would work better, do we need to add anything? I can tell you right now in my Python class, that's why I use it as an example, we are going through and we are moving content around, and I'm adding additional content because these are things that you need. We need to move this forward. And that way, that particular course will serve more than just one program. It will serve several. And then industry alignment, how we do that, you see Calibrate Skills Engine. We actually have an application that was developed where when we talk to our industry partners on what they would like to see added to our curriculum or what they need their folks to learn, we put them in our Calibrate Skills Engine. Here's everything that you told us. Now, please rank them for us so that we know what order those need to go in. We're making sure they're in multiple classes. We're aligning those to particular courses. If we've already got the course developed and implemented, do we need to add a new course? It also gives our industry partners a great idea and a great example of how much we value their opinions and their input on our curriculum. Moving forward, again, with program level support, how did we do this? We went through a backwards design, flipped classwork. I'm not going to go through all of these in little bullet points, but we looked at it from the end game. What is it we want the students to be able to do? And then from that end, how do we get there? So we created the journey on how to get there. Authentic assessments, you can't go in and just copy it. I'm gonna copy the question from here, question 6 from the master assessment, post it on Google and get the answer. No, we want authentic assessments. We want to make sure that they are actually learning and mastering the concepts. We've done a lot of research from ONET and CBIN and everything else, finding what the best practices were. What are they? What can we add to our repertoire? What can we do to make this a little bit more interactive and engaging and fun and make it work? And what is the best way to do this? And I use the interactive and engaging. Students are going to be bored. They're not going to pay attention. So we want to make sure that our content, and I know that's a simple statement, but we want to make sure that all of our content is interactive, it's fun, it piques their interest, it gets them excited, it has them looking forward to something. Because how many times have you sat there in a class and you're like, oh, I could fall asleep right now? We don't want them falling asleep because we're not at their house with them at 2 o'clock in the morning. We want them paying attention to the lectures and the instructional content. So when they come to demonstrate mastery, they have it. They've been engaged and we're interacting with them. That also gives us a great, great way to get feedback from our learners of, hey, I really liked this. You need to do more of this. And okay, great. We'll add that to our best practices and we'll continue to put more of that particular type of like item in all of our content. Information chunking, we break it into smaller pieces or smaller chunks, bite-sized nuggets, if you will. So I told you this, I showed you this. Now I want you to show me, do a check for understanding. For example, I told you what a motherboard was. I showed you what a motherboard was. Now please demonstrate for me or do a check for understanding that you know what a motherboard is. And I'm going to put 3 pieces of 3 computer parts on the table and have the student pick out what the motherboard is. So if they come up with a CPU in their hand, I know they didn't read that or listen to that content. Accessibility is important, making sure that we use Read Speaker, we're ADA compliant, they have access to all of the information at their fingertips, and then obviously quality control. We want to make sure that everything we do is high quality, that the students are going to enjoy it, that it provides the appropriate information on the topic that's being presented. So everything that we do is high quality. Student engagement is extremely important. I know with moving online, a lot of colleges and universities across the world lost a lot of engagement with the student. So we're bringing that back, and for some, it's been an issue for many, many years pre-COVID. But we engage with our students where they are. So we use things like Slack, Discord. IT students, my students are typically gamers. So they're used to being communicated with through a Slack channel or through a Discord server. So we have those available to them and we talk with them. We get the best communications from our students using Slack because it's a direct message. We can post announcements, job postings, everything, and the students will come back and respond to us. Individualized, effective, and timely feedback. When we're grading master assessments, we're looking at one student at a time. We've instituted policies to make sure that if a student submits a master assessment on Monday, that within a specific set of times, I believe it's either 24 or 48 hours, right off the top of my head, don't remember today. I usually do mine within 24 hours or by the end of that day. It's effective and timely. So that, why is that important to the student? We want to let the student know and remind the student that we are here to support them. So when they submit a master assessment, we want to let them know, hey, I got it. You did a great job. You might want to focus a little bit more effort here, but good, kudos, way to go. Congratulations, move on to the next module. Or hey, how cool is that? You just passed the course. Effective and timely. Get them individualized on their level so it's personal to them and they feel a part of your organization. Advising, tutoring, and progress pathways. Progress pathways, if we're having an issue with a student or we notice something as a faculty member, we go put in what's referred to as a progress pathway. It's just a little note that says, hey, can you check on this student? So our PBE mentors will identify and go and check on those students. Pacing guide, What we do is we have, for each course, we've established both a 7.5 week and a 15-week pacing guide that basically indicates that if you want to take the entire semester to do this, 15-week semester to complete this course, here's when you need to have assignments or mastery assessments submitted so that you can keep on that pace. If you want to complete the course in 7.5 weeks, same thing. Here's when you're going to need, or what pace you're going to need to keep in order to submit all those master assessments in order to keep on that 7.5 week pace. We provide those pacing guides within our courses so the students have the ability, and they're the ones making the decision how they want to guide themselves on their learning journey. We also have a facilitator guide, and by that, I may have created the course as the CME, but Katie's going to teach it. So I want to let Katie know why I built the course the way I did, what's included in each module, what you can expect from the student, or what the student should expect to learn, key points of interest, topics you want to emphasize, things of that nature. It's how to facilitate the course. Moving into a hybrid modality, you also have the ability to work on what we refer to as advanced topics or special projects. It's like, ooh, cool, Python. You can use it for all kinds of different things. Hey, I've demonstrated mastery. Can I go and do this project and use Python to build a game? Well, you sure can. So that flexibility of that time, if the student is working through their content and they're on a great pace and they're doing well, give them that flexibility, give that faculty member that flexibility to work with that student on those special projects. And you're not only continuing to maintain the interest of the learner, you're probably getting something done or working on a project that you've been wanting to do for a while. And the experience that it gives the faculty member working with that student is phenomenal. It is unparalleled. And again, continuous improvement. I know for myself, I'm always working on with my students and working on my courses, trying to improve those, trying to improve myself, my professional development, as well as the development of my students, development with my industry partners. So reason why I'm revising my Python courses because I had an industry partner ask me to add key parts to my Python course. So continuous improvement is everywhere. Environmental considerations. If you notice down here across the right-hand side of the screen, these are actually pictures of our HVAC facility off of our Harlingen campus. This is all of their lab equipment. And then there's some particular items of interest. That's why I have it here. This is their lab space in an open line of sight. As you can see, it looks very clean. It's not just because they cleaned the lab up so we could take these pictures. It's because it is like this all the time. When the students are in here working, they work on all of this, all the HVAC equipment. And when they're done, the job is not done, and they're not done demonstrating mastery until they clean up their lab area. Because when they're on a job site, they have the last thing that they do when they're working on an air conditioner is they have to clean up their job area. So the instructors and mentors in Harlingen make sure that that is done, and it just keeps the student on the pathway and forms a habit of making sure that that is done. But as you can see, you have open line of sight all the way across the lab around all kinds of equipment. Over here on this back wall is their computer lab. Again, windows everywhere so that it doesn't matter whether the students are inside the computer lab or out with the equipment, or the faculty members inside the computer lab or out with the equipment. They can see everything that is going on within that HVAC facility. Over here down this side are our faculty offices. So again, we're maintaining that open line of sight all the way across the board. You'll also see over here PBE mentor and enrollment coach offices. If I remember correctly, the PBE mentor is over here and the enrollment coach is right on the other side. They're like right here on this wall, right within this window. So everyone that is involved with that HVAC program in Harlingen is right there in that area. What does that do for the student? It gives the student the opportunity to ask a question of whomever they need to ask. So if they need to know, hey, what courses am I probably going to be in next semester? They can go to the enrollment coach, and it's right there. The coach is right there in the building with them. They can feel free to ask anytime. We also have what we refer to as innovation stations located in our lab. Unfortunately, it's not pictured in this one, but we've added stations in for XR, VR, and AR so that we're adding HoloLens and Oculus Quest into our lab so that we're integrating emerging technologies. It also allows flexibility. I know with HVAC, for example, the student can put on a HoloLens headset and they can go through and work a simulation on installing, I think it's called a boiler unit. I'm never going to get that word right, but a boiler unit within a particular HVAC system. We also have an enhanced lecture space. So any of these open areas, if Billy Weaver is the instructor and HVAC instructor in Harlingen, if he wanted to do stand here at this machine up here at top and do a live face-to-face lecture with students in his lab, he has that flexibility. He also has that flexibility to add a few tables and chairs to create an enhanced lecture space. Faculty offices, I've already pointed out, those right over here. And then optimized IT structure, because we're adding the innovation stations and adding additional equipment into the labs, our IT infrastructure has to be just through the roof so that we can include the bandwidth or incorporate the bandwidth that's going to be needed to support those types of work areas. So we've advanced our IT infrastructure to updated DSL lines. Everything is top of the line so that our students don't have to experience that nasty word called lag when they get in there and they're trying to use a HoloLens to do a simulation. Deployment best practices, communication is key. That's always going to be my number one. We created virtual communities. So at any point in time, you can go online and say, hey, I need to talk to an instructor, and there's someone available to you. I need to talk to a mentor, boom. I need to talk to an enrollment coach. We have virtual communities available for all. Quality control and stakeholder review, every single thing that we do, we make sure that every stakeholder that's involved knows what's going on. They've reviewed it. They put their stamp of approval on it, and it's of high quality, because we're not going to ask for their approval unless we know it's a high quality product that we're offering them to review. Enhanced annotation and appropriate emphasis. We're making sure that every single topic that is including in all of our curriculum is documented appropriately and emphasized appropriately. And by that, I mean, back to what I was talking about earlier. If it's something that we know as IT professionals, we know you need to be aware of, but you're probably never going to use, we're going to make sure you are aware of it. We're going to annotate that you are aware of it, but then we're going to emphasize this is where you're going to use it. Good example of that would be IP addressing. You're going to use IPv4. You're going to use IPv6. You need to know how IPv6 addresses look and what they're typically used for, but your main focus is going to be on IPv4. So we're going to make sure that the appropriate emphasis is given to IPv4 addressing. Student support structure. We discussed of all the different entities advising, financial aid, Veterans Affairs, etc. All of those student support infrastructure elements have to be there to make sure that the students are fully equipped and that everyone is ready to handle the student that is signing up for a PBE course or PBE program. Effective utilization of technology and resources. If we don't have it and we need it, we're going to get it. If we need it and don't need, or have it and don't need it, we need to get it out of the way so that we have the availability and the flexibility to bring in what is needed to support the course, the program, and most importantly, the student that is moving into industry. Flexibility, I listed that under best practices because y'all, I can tell you, y'all know I'm from Texas, obviously, because it's Texas State Technical College, but the flexibility of a PBE initiative is through the roof. It's flexible for the student, and we've talked about that throughout this entire session. It's also flexible for the faculty, because the faculty, as a faculty member, I sit now and I'm like, okay. Now we can do this. Now we can do that. Now I can add additional content. Now we can take a moment back and say, okay, the student is doing well here. We need to we need a VR simulation of installing a memory chip. Now let's go make that happen. Because beforehand, we were teaching, we were lecturing, we were grading, we were doing all of that and trying to build content at the same time. And it worked. It worked well because we did it, but it could have been better. It's that continuous improvement element that does the PBE, the flexible PBE environment gives you the ability to move back to. It's just phenomenal. So that being said, I want to thank you all for joining me and sticking through this entire session. I know I talked a lot. If you have any questions or would you like additional information, you're welcome to contact me. It's Renee, RENEE.Blackshear, black like the color, S like, or shears like cutting shears, at tstc.edu. I believe in the chat, there should be a session survey. If you wouldn't mind taking a few moments to fill that out, we'd greatly appreciate it. But at this time, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.